Heidi. Introduction. When people think of Switzerland, they think of snowy mountains. Many people think too of Heidi, the story of the little Swiss girl who lived in the mountains. This story was written over 100 years ago in German, but for all that time, people have been reading it in many languages. The writer Johannes Parry was born in 1827 in the small farming village of Heide in the Swiss Alps. She grew up there with her 3 sisters and 2 brothers. Like Heidi, she loved the beautiful mountains. Her father was the village doctor. After leaving school, she went to study in Zurich, and in 1852 she married Bernhard Spire, a lawyer. They had one child, a son called Bernhard, who died in 1884, aged 29. His father died later in the same year. Johannes Spire stayed in Zurich until her death in 1901. She did not begin writing books until she was about 50. Heidi was written in 1880 when she was 53. It becomes popular later. At once, a number of the other books followed, but none of them was popular as Heidi. Heidi is a child without a mother or father. She comes to live with her grandfather when she is only 6. Her grandfather is a hard, unhappy man who hates everyone. That's why he chooses to live alone, high up in the mountains. There is a village nearby, but he doesn't talk to their people there. Will Heidi be able to make him change his ways? Heidi loves living with her grandfather and his 2 pretty goats, Snowy and Brownie. She makes friends too with Goat Peter and his family, who always live on the mountain. But she does not stay in the mountains forever. She goes to Frankfurt, where she finds a new friend, poor Clara, who can't walk. Heidi learns many new things in Clara's fine house in Frankfurt, but she doesn't belong in a city. She belongs in the Swiss mountains, and that is where we think for her. 100 years ago, writers for children wanted their stories to teach a lesson. Johannes Parry tried to show her readers that even a young child can help other people and make them happy. Is Heidi too good to be true? Well, perfect. But when we are reading about her, we believe in her because she is so full of life. And we continually believe in Peter, who is not good at all. Heidi is still one of the most popular children's stories in the world, and it's not only children who enjoy it. Films for the cinema and for television have been made of it, and so more people than enjoy Heidi's story. Thank you. Chapter 1. Opa. The little village of Darfi was high up in the Swiss Alps. There were mountains all around it, big beautiful mountains with snow on them. The nearest mountain was called the Elm. High up on the elm was a little wooden house. An old man lived there alone with his 2 goats. People called him Elm Opa. He had quarreled with the people of the village and gone away to a far country. People told terrible stories about him. When he was a young man, he had lost all his father's money and gone away to a far country. Nobody really knew what he had done there. But in the end, he came back with a son but no wife. Everybody liked Tobias, the son he got. Worked in Dorfli, and then he married a girl from the village. Her name was Edelheid. Soon they had a child, a little girl. They named her Edelheid too, but they always called her Heidi. Heidi is a child only a year old. When Tobias was killed, he was working in a house and a big piece of wood fell on his head. Poor Edelheid became very ill and died soon after. Now, Heidi had no mother and no father. She had a grandfather, Amopa, but he didn't want a child of a year old. So who could look after Heidi? Edelheid had a sister, Deet, who lived in a small town not far from Drafli. Deet took the child to live with her, but Deet didn't want to look after Heidi forever. When Heidi was 6, Deet met a German lady. The lady asked Deet to work for her in her house in Frankfurt. Frankfurt is a big city, and Deet wanted to go there very much. But what about Heidi? I'll take Heidi to her grandfather, she thought. He can look after her. So one day in June, Deet brought Heidi back to Dorfli. She walked quickly through the village, pulling Heidi along. She didn't want to answer a lot of questions, but a woman saw her and called out, Deet, is this your poor sister's child? Where are you taking her? To Amopa, said Deet. He must look after her now. I've got work in Frankfurt. What? The woman cried. That terrible old man who never speaks to anyone and never goes to church. What will he do to the poor child? You can't leave her with him. But Deet didn't stop. They went on up the mountain. The sun was hot, and Heidi's face was very red. She was wearing all her clothes at once, 3 dresses, one over the other. After 40 minutes, they came to a little An old man wooden house on the mountainside. It had a broken door and there were holes in the roof. Is that grandfather's house? Cried Heidi. No, his house is higher up, said Dick. Thank you.